Welcome back. So got a nice response to the first One Hit Wonders video that I did just a little while ago. So here comes part 2. And a couple of the tunes I'm covering here are ones that you all suggested in the comments. That's awesome. Keep them coming. Love to hear what you guys want me to talk about. So in the immortal words of Rob Reiner from This Is Spinal Tap, enough of my yakking. Let's get into it. As most of you know, I generally like to play the actual recording in my intros to each segment, but unfortunately Looking Glass blocked me, so I came up with a little chord melody arrangement, as you heard. It was actually kind of fun doing that. Hopefully you guys liked it. Probably the best way to prove that this song was a huge hit and somewhat of a cultural phenomenon is not to quote the usual Billboard chart positions or sales figures, but instead to look at something that's normally unrelated to music. In 1971, Brandy was the 353rd most common girl's name. In 1972, when the song was released, that figure jumped to number 140. And by 1973, obviously the first full year after the song's release, that number was 82. Coincidence? I think not. This tune appeared on the eponymous debut album from Looking Glass and was written by guitarist and co-vocalist Elliot Lurie. Lurie and all the members of this group had been students at Rutgers University. The song was also, of course, released as a single, and in spite of my earlier statement, I will tell you that it reached number 1 on both Billboard and Cashbox. I'm sure the vast majority of you are pretty familiar with the lyrics and the story they tell. That's been a huge part of this song's appeal over the years. Brandy tends bar in a seaside town where the sailors come in to pass the time. There's a girl in this harbor town and she works laying whiskey down. They say, "Brandy, fetch another round." She serves them whiskey and wine. The sailors say, "Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. Yeah, your eyes could steal a sailor from the sea." But in spite of all the sailors that came and went through that town, Brandy carried a torch for just one, even though she knew it could never be. He came on a summer's day bearing gifts from far away. He made it clear that he couldn't stay. No harbor was his home. Okay, maybe that's a little bit hokey, but I would argue hokey in the best possible way. The tune is in the key of E major. There are quite a few chord changes, pretty active rhythm going on. E, G sharp minor is the 3 chord, C sharp minor is the 6 chord, F sharp minor is the 2 chord. We get a D, that's the one chord that's not really in the key of E. It's an outside chord borrowed from the parallel minor key. But then right back into A, which of course is the 4 chord. And then the cool thing is, we've seen this time and again, in the chorus, they move to the relative key of C sharp minor. So it's the major verse, the minor chorus. We've also seen that in reverse. Minor verse, major chorus. It's just a great way to keep a song interesting without making a drastic change. And I think it's that active rhythm with all the rapid chord changes that allows them to get away with a very simple melody in the verse. Mostly 3 notes, technically 4, but it's effective. Brandy wears a braided chain made of finest silver from the north of Spain. A locket that bears the name of the man that Brandy loves. He came on a summer's day bringing gifts from far away, but he made it clear that he couldn't stay. No harbor was his home. The sailors said, Brandy, you're a fine girl. For your good wife, you would be such a fine girl. My lover, my lady, is the sea. One of the great things about doing this channel is how much I learn about this music that we all love so much. Over all these years, I thought for sure this song must be about a man suspecting his romantic partner of infidelity, right? Well, if friends with their fancy persuasion don't admit that it's part of a scheme, then I can't help but have my suspicions, 'cause I ain't quite as dumb as I seem. And you said you was never intending to break up our scene in this way, but there ain't no use in pretending it could happen to us any day. But according to Paul Carrack, who wrote and sang the tune, it's not about a romantic infidelity, but rather a musical one. Carrack had discovered that bassist Terry Comer had been secretly working with two other bands, the Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, and decided to call him out in the lyrics. By the way, while Ace may be a one-hit wonder, Paul Carrack himself went on to have great success in several other musical projects over the years. Do you remember this one from 1981?
Tempted by the fruit of another, tempted but the truth is discovered. What's been going on?
It's really fun to see the change in style that took place over those few years. Those were some really mid-70s looking guys we saw in the Ace video from 1975. Meanwhile, here's Carrack in 1981, still behind the keyboard, but rocking the gelled hair, the sport coat, and the little tie. Another interesting fact about this song that I just now noticed when making this video, it's only got the one verse. The verse that I quoted earlier is followed by the chorus, how long has this been going on? And then right back into the same verse. Now, normally you'd think that's kind of lame, there's got to be a second verse, but it works. It just goes to show when it comes to songwriting, there are no set rules. Each song is different, and I think this one is fine the way it is. The guitar solo certainly helps to keep things interesting. Nothing fancy, mostly just a nice mix of major and minor pentatonic stuff in C, but the guitar's tone is really interesting. Kind of raspy and buzzy in the best possible way. I poked around a bit online. There's all kinds of speculation as to how guitarist Phil Harris might have achieved that unique tone. The general consensus seems to be it's probably just some sort of fuzz box, maybe combined with a univibe pedal. The verse has one of those hypnotic two-chord progressions that you could listen to all day long. We start off with an A-flat major, but with a B-flat on the bass. So that's just loaded with tension. Right from the get-go, it just wants to go to a B-flat chord, which is what it does. And of course, the bass note remains B-flat. Just so pleasing to listen to. Well, you're friends with the fancy persuasion. Don't admit that it's part of a scheme, but I can't help but have my suspicion, 'cause I ain't quite as dumb as I seem. And you said you were never intending to break break up our scene in this way, but there ain't any use in pretending. It could happen to us any day.
Yeah, they were dancing and singing and moving to the grooving, and just when it hit me, somebody turned around and shouted, "Play that funky music, white boy. Play that funky music right. Play that funky music, white boy. Lay down the boogie and play that funky music till you die."
Having played in a couple of goofy cover bands for quite a few years back in the day, this tune holds a special place in my heart. Anybody that's ever played in bars knows that the number one key to success is getting people dancing. And I can tell you from experience that there is no better song than this for accomplishing just that. All it takes is maybe 3 or 4 notes of that iconic guitar riff and the party starts. The song was written by Wild Cherry frontman Rob Parisi and was released on Cleveland-based Sweet City Records in April of 1976. It shot straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was also a huge crossover, making it to number 1 on the Hot Soul Singles chart, proving that these guys were some pretty funky white boys indeed. Play That Funky Music was the only Wild Cherry tune to crack the top 40, which I think absolutely qualifies them for one-hit wonder status. Now, interestingly, they had been more of a hard rock band, but in the climate of the mid-70s with disco going crazy, were forced to play stuff in that style just to get work. And that's another thing about this band and this song that I can absolutely relate to. Many of us in the 70s and 80s were forced to play music that wasn't necessarily what we wanted to be doing just to get paid. I love the story of how this song was written. Maybe some of you have heard it before. The band was playing a gig at a venue called the 2001 Club on the north side of Pittsburgh to a predominantly black audience and not going over so well. During the break, one of the patrons came up to one of the band members and asked, "Are you going to play some funky music, white boy?" After which Parisi grabbed a pen and paper and hurriedly wrote down the lyrics. Apparently he wrote the song in about 5 minutes, and the rest is history. It's funny, as funky as this tune is, I feel like I can hear the hard rock band just straining to break through. Take the opening riff. You throw a little distortion on there, that thing could have been written by Ritchie Blackmore or Eddie Van Halen. For the verse, Parisi pulls out some funky ninth chords, instant James Brown vibe. Especially along with the choke strums and the slides he does as well. The verse stays in E, and then there's a sweet little move to G for the chorus. He slides those ninth chords up chromatically. Take a listen to how the lyrics succinctly describe how the band was lured into the world of disco. I was a boogie singer, playing in a rock and roll band. I never had no problems, yeah, burning down the one-night stands. And everything around me got to stop to feeling so low. And I decided quickly, yes I did, to just go down and check out the show. So that's a wrap for this one. If you're still watching, I'm assuming you liked what you saw. So if you'd like to help the channel, of course you can do that by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing the video with anyone you think might enjoy it. And of course, financial contributions are very welcome. Lots of ways to do that. Buy me a coffee, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. You can find all those links in the description of the video. We'll see you next week.